Hi friends! Today we are talking about autism and hygiene, so please stick around. Hi friends! My name is Claire and this is my channel. Woodshed Theory! Here, I make content about what it is like to live as an adult on the autism spectrum and whatever else feels good to me, so if that sounds good to you, or if you're feeling particularly gracious today, and I hope that you are, please go ahead and click the subscribe button, ring the bell. I almost forgot to mention that I put out videos 3 times a week. Click the like. Again, thank you to everyone for helping me with supporting on my videos. I really appreciate it. It really helps when you interact with them, so thanks. Autism and hygiene. You know, this is not what I thought I'd be talking about on my channel, but here we are. So as many of you know, I recently did a series reviewing the US version of Love on the Spectrum. And something that came up a lot from the participants of that show is that good hygiene was extremely important to them. This surprised me because I don't think that is what I would list as things that are important to me, but I completely understood where they were coming from. I made mention of this surprising me, and one of you suggested that I do a video on autism and our feelings on hygiene and our experience with hygiene, and I thought that this would be something that would be interesting to talk about. Taboo, perhaps, but you know, I talk about the things that other people don't, and that's why you're here, maybe. I don't know. Honestly, I don't do a lot of research. Like, I will see that later on somebody who has done a video on something already, so maybe I should do research beforehand, but I like to give you my off-the-cuff feelings on things without being persuaded from other people. Like, I don't watch other people's videos, etc. Just an autistic lady telling you what I think. I should probably start with what do I mean by hygiene. I am referring to human hygiene. I am not going to say the word personal hygiene for the whole video because I want to discuss how we view hygiene as autistic people, how autistic people may view hygiene, and then I also want to talk about how we deal with hygiene, our struggles and successes with it, and just talk about the idea in more general terms. So when I'm talking about hygiene, I'm talking about humans and how we keep ourselves clean. When thinking about this topic, the first question that came to my mind is, why do autistic people seem to care so much about hygiene? As I mentioned, I was a little taken aback that so many people mentioned it as a thing that they cared about on Love on the Spectrum, so I thought we should give it some thought. Why do people on the spectrum care about people's good or bad hygiene? My first thought is that people on the spectrum deal with many different types of sensory issues. We, for example, can have a heightened sense of smell. We may be more sensitive to how something can look. We also have very strong feelings and sensory inputs that are going into us. So my first thought was we care because of our sensory issues. So if a person were to smell bad or have bad breath or have greasy hair, we would be more apt to notice it than maybe a neurotypical person. I can't say that for sure. I'm just saying it might be more on our radar. The bigger thing, I think, is that we are less able to hide our feelings about this than neurotypical people. So if somebody were to smell or were to have bad breath or were to have greasy hair, I'm trying to think of like issues one might have, it would be hard for us not to say something. And if you are a parent with autistic children, you might have noticed that your children always call this out in other people. It's something that my mother has said that I used to do, comment on people's looks or how they smelled or how they kept their hair or facial hair. This is just something that we struggle, even if we don't say something out loud, we struggle with our facial expressions, maybe making a sour face, or we just have trouble hiding our feelings if someone has an issue with hygiene. So that was the first thing I thought of, sensory issues and how we're able to react to them. We struggle with that. Another reason I thought we care about hygiene issues as autistic people could be from comorbidities such as OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and our need for order and control. We like order and control in our lives, and a lot of that can revolve around stringent or specific hygiene requirements for ourselves. Something else I thought we could consider is people's perception of neurodiverse people. We already know that we are different. That's fine. We are different, right? We have different neurological pathways than some neurotypical people. But we also know that the neurotypical perception of neurodiverse people is usually incorrect, and that assumptions are made about us and our hygiene or our lack of awareness of our own hygiene. The assumption is that it's subpar or that it's bad, that we don't care. So when it comes to our own personal hygiene, this is something that we can control, that we can put a finger on. Oh, okay, this is what, in my autistic perception at least, is considered normal, and this is what I can control. And it becomes very important to us as neurodiverse people to follow neurotypical guidelines so that we're at least fitting in that perspective. Gosh, this is hard to talk about, guys, because I try to be as general as I can, because I obviously don't speak for all autistic people. But I also know that there are some things that do apply to all autistic people, so it makes it difficult. I just want to again say that all people who are on the spectrum are different, and we all have different experiences. So I'm trying to be as general as possible, to be as inclusive as possible. I know it's not possible to speak perfectly for everyone. So if what I'm saying doesn't apply to you or doesn't seem right to you, these are just my opinions, and I am sorry. If you have different opinions, I'd love to hear them in the comments. I just really want to make sure that I know that it's impossible to speak without offending anybody, but I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible. The other thing I was thinking about on why we care so much about hygiene as people who are on the spectrum is that we as the spectrum people have very stringent guidelines, and we like rules. We also struggle with these guidelines and rules when other people can't uphold those standards, even if we know they shouldn't be held to those standards. They're not under that set of rules. We want the people around us to live up to our standards, whatever they may be. And of course, that's impossible. Everyone lives by a different set of guidelines, by a different set of rules. But if we feel comfortable, I'm making things up, taking 2 showers a day, brushing your teeth after every meal, putting on deodorant several times a day, if that's our routine, we would want other people to uphold that routine, and to us that would be a standard routine. I hope I'm making sense. All of these things are so hard to talk about. Pick an easy topic, please. Next time, pick an easy topic. So in general, yes, I think that people who are on the spectrum do care about our own hygiene and about the hygiene of others. It's important to us to at least be able to fit in somewhat with the neurotypical standard as it relates to hygiene. We have heightened sensory issues and comorbidities that make hygiene important to us. And also we struggle not to react when we're having sensory issues as it pertains to other people's hygiene. Just a general example, if someone smells bad, we would have trouble not saying something or making a face or walking out of the room. Now that I have addressed why do we care about personal hygiene or other people's hygiene, I should probably talk about something that I thought of when this question of hygiene came up, and that is, why do people on the spectrum struggle with personal hygiene? Why did I think that this was a good idea to do a video on? Too controversial. I should have just stuck to like special interest or whatever. I'm gonna try my best. I don't believe I'm speaking out of turn because I do sometimes struggle with my own personal hygiene and having a good system or structure to maintain my own personal hygiene. I believe that there may be a perception that autistic people may struggle with personal hygiene. Not all autistic people. As I mentioned, if you have a very strong support system who is walking you through your day or has you on a very strict schedule, or if you have yourself on a very strict schedule, or if you have a comorbidity such as OCD where you're on a strict schedule as far as cleanliness, then maybe you don't struggle with your personal hygiene, or maybe you struggle with too much personal hygiene. There are so many different colors in a spectrum, right? Everyone is very different. But why would an autistic person struggle with personal hygiene? First, as I mentioned, if we don't have a specific schedule, if we're not on a stringent schedule, if we go off of our schedule, we can struggle with knowing when to shower or bathe or brush our teeth or comb our hair or keep up with our own personal hygiene. Another thing to mention is that people who are on the spectrum also are prone to things like ADHD, and we really may struggle with having or keeping a schedule. We may struggle with knowing when is the right time to do something. We may suffer from time blindness, where we don't realize that so much time has passed in between keeping up with our personal hygiene. We may have gotten into a special interest and lost all track of time. It may have been days since we've showered and we just didn't even notice because we were really into what we were into at the moment. So those are additional reasons that we might struggle. Another thing I was thinking about was we are very in tune with the sensory issues of things that are happening around us, but at least personally for me, I'm not always in tune to myself as an autistic person. And I know other people struggle with this as well. I might not realize that I smell or need to take a shower. I might not realize how greasy my hair has gotten. I might not realize that my breath stinks. I don't realize. I am not in tune with my own personal hygiene in that I can't detect a issue on myself. This is so hard to talk about, so I'm sorry. I'm trying my best. I struggle to detect those issues in myself because normally I am very wrapped up in what is going on around me and that sensory input. So if I do notice that I have a personal hygiene issue, that's usually a litmus for me to know that it has gone beyond a point and I should take care of it immediately because I probably don't notice it until it's bad. Another thing that we may struggle with, or another reason we may struggle with personal hygiene, is that we as autistic people are very literal and we don't take the hint. And I think that comments about personal hygiene in a social setting are usually very veiled in niceties, or there's a lot of effort and attempt to not be rude. We don't read hints like that, which is why when we think someone smells bad, we say, hey, have you put on deodorant today? Hey, you smell bad. Hey, have you been brushing your teeth? Now I know now as an adult not to say stuff like that, right? It's not my place to say stuff like that. I have learned not to be like that, but that it has not always been that way for me. So yes, we may struggle to take a hint from somebody if something is wrong with our hygiene. We need people to be straightforward. And it's hard for us to read these acceptable social hints about what we might need to improve on in the future, because we ourselves, we don't read them, we don't give subtle hints. It's just not how our brain works. Those are the two kind of categories I thought of when discussing hygiene and autism. First, that question of why do we care so much about hygiene? Why is it so important to us? And then the other side of it is, why do people on the spectrum seem to struggle with hygiene if it is so important to us? So I hope I covered both of those questions. I know that this was a weird topic and I've probably said that 20 times already in this video, but I thought, why not talk about it and just, air out this topic? I understand that sometimes there are going to be topics that we want to talk about as a group, as an autistic group of people, and they're not always going to be comfortable topics, and that's okay. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, but at least we're bringing it up, at least we're talking about it and helping each other. So that was my thought. Please go ahead and sound off in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Why do we care so much? Why might we struggle? I'm sure everyone would love to know your thoughts. This is such a good and open community. I know that people will be respectful of one another. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. I am so glad that you're here. I hope you come back, and I will see you next time. Bye.